People often ask me, when you were at your sickest, James, I had a litany of symptoms, and they all often ask me, what was the worst one you had to deal with? And in an honest moment, yeah, my digestion was a wreck. My skin, my hair, my nails were cracking, and I was losing weight no matter how much I put in my mouth. But it was the brain fog that really scared me because I was like, is this going to be my lot in life for the rest of my life? Am I getting early onset Alzheimer's here? I couldn't think straight. The brain fog was unrelenting. And this listener asked, oxalate-induced brain fog, why it happens and how it heals. Again, nuanced, but over to you, Monique.
I'll just start out by saying I suspect, and again, need to have more research on what the heck oxalate's doing, but I suspect that oxalate-induced brain fog may actually be histamine-induced brain fog. And that's because oxalate is irritating mast cells and then they are releasing histamine. And so I think it's a set of dominoes as opposed to a one direct kind of impact. And the thing that makes me more inclined to think that way is now that I've been digging into the histamine world, because more and more of my clients are dealing kind of both with histamine symptoms and with oxalate symptoms. Brain fog is something they talk about in the histamine world too. And our histamine in our body is functional, but can be doing things that we don't want it to do. And for those who have got some experience with allergies and that kind of thing, there's this concept of the histamine bucket, and you can fill that bucket up in all kinds of ways. But once the bucket is full and it starts to spill over, you can get different kinds of symptoms, one of which I think can be brain fog. Now, why brain fog, right? Like that, why would histamine and oxalate somehow make brain fog? Our bodies use histamine for our sleep-wake cycle in the brain. And when histamine goes up, that means that tells the brain we're supposed to be awake and alert. But then it's supposed to go up and stay up stably. And then when it's time to sleep, it drops to signal to the brain it's time to sleep, and then has to stay down. What if you're doing this, right? If you're going up and down all the time. Or what if your histamine hovers too high? And so then a little impact to your histamine is already knocking you up too high. And then when it falls back, your brain thinks it's supposed to be going to sleep. I think sharpness of thought suffers with this kind of histamine bounce around happening in the brain. And we now know that there's actually mast cells in the brain, which we didn't know that before. That's new research. So in my own case, when I was early on the diet, because my daughter was still pretty young, I remember sitting at the table across from her. She would have been about 3.5, 4. And I said to her, give me that. And I started to flutter like this, like that thing in front of her. And my daughter, 4-year-old, cocks her head, looks at me and says, Mama, the book? I thought for sure that my brain was somehow going to be compromised. I actually started to wonder about early dementia myself. Turned out my IQ and all the good stuff was still in there somewhere, but I needed to have this proper cycle back. I needed to have that kind of good, clear focus back. And you can talk to people who have allergies and how they start to feel a little like less clear when their allergies are up. I think this is another one of those things where we've got some stuff kind of swirling together and entangled with each other. And again, it's like oxalate and histamine dominoes and how those two affect each other. So anything that trips histamine might trip brain fog. If I overdo dairy, I'll do it to myself again. I don't usually do too much dairy anymore because I know what it does to me, but Christmas. There was that chocolate that I saw, so occasionally I succumb. I'm human. I'm a nutritionist. I succumb. But once I then get back to my regular way of eating, then it clears up again. So I think we have to keep in mind oxalate, histamine. By the way, oxalate can be related to poor blood sugar management. Blood sugar will mess with your brain too. So again, we might have more of a 3-ring circus even than just 2 players. Because the research shows that if you are metabolically unwell, either metabolic syndrome, diabetes, anything which indicates that blood sugar is not well managed, your risk of kidney stones goes up. That's a clear oxalate related piece of the puzzle. And so, yeah, I think again, we've got these things which are maybe kicking our butts in more than one way.